VideoMathTutor.com presents vile, evil, and demonic fractions. Starring Luis Anthony Ust as the Fraction Slayer. Fractions, the most hated of all math concepts. But the Fraction Slayer's ready to face them. There's a nasty looking fraction. The Slayer springs into action. Maybe you should just try erasing it.
Hello, welcome to Basic Math, lesson number 6. What is that graphic doing there? Hey, I don't want to scare the students. Okay, why don't you change that to something a little more upbeat, okay, for the student? Let's try this again. Welcome to Basic Math, lesson number 6. Now that's overkill. Fractions aren't cute and cuddly, they're not really scary or evil or anything like that. They're just fractions. Part of mathematics. Although it is the number one thing students tell me that they just hate fractions. Well, actually they don't hate them. They hate not understanding fractions. See, there's a difference. And what I hope to do in this video is to make sure you understand fractions. And in fact, fractions are very easy to manipulate, to add and subtract, multiply, divide, to do many things with them. And you'll see that in this video. Fractions are a huge part of just everyday occurrences. And let's take a moment now to illustrate some of those. Fractions exist in our money. In fact, we have half dollars, we have quarter dollars. They're parts of a whole. Nickels, dimes, pennies, they're all portions of a dollar. And the portions, the subdivisions, are fractions. In the medical field, fractions play a huge part. For instance, if you want to give a patient a certain dosage of medicine, either pill form or an injection, you have to measure things in small portions, and that's where fractions come in. Oh yeah, fractions play a huge part in music! Yeah, you got your beats, those are fractions. You have your half notes, your quarter notes. Why am I yelling? Yeah, you got your quarter notes, half notes, eighth notes. They're all fractions. Sports are oozing with fractions. Baseball, for example, when you have like a batting average or a pitcher's ERA, they're fractions, really. How about football, for example? You got your fullbacks, you got your halfbacks, you got your quarterbacks. The players are named after fractions. It's amazing. And of course, in any sport, you're dealing with time factors. A tenth of a second, a hundredth of a second. They're all about fractions. Cooking is another terrific example of what fractions are all about. For example, when you're measuring things, either cups or portions of a cups or tablespoons or teaspoons, you're dealing in recipes with fractions. Also, when recipes call for, let's say this serves 4 people, but you have a party of 20, we have to now multiply fractions. And that's something that's important to do. Or let's say you only have 1 person, so you get to now divide your portions to get the proper amount for your recipe. Shopping is another great example of using fractions. For example, if you're getting stuff for half price or 10% off. Yes, percentage is a type of fraction. Fractions play a huge role in, of course, math and the sciences. For example, right over here you can see fractions play a role if you want to measure a certain volume of a liquid. If you divide a circle into 360 equal parts, each part is called a degree. Visually, you can see that with this thing. It's called an angle viewer. And here, for example, I don't know if you can see that, but that's 1 degree. If I increase this, see right there is 45 degrees. So that angle of measurement is 45 parts of 360 parts, fractions. And we can go further. You have 90 degrees or 180 and so on. So measuring angles is very important in the real world, and it all has to do with fractions. Oh, time is another great example of fractions. An hour is 1/24th of a day, and each hour can be divided into 60 minutes. So each minute is 1/60th of an hour. And of course, each minute that passes, 60 seconds have occurred. So each second is 1/60th of a minute. Of course, my favorite fraction is pizza. That's right, without fractions, you'd have a tough time eating this thing. You wouldn't be able to cut it because each cut, each slice is a fraction. Now that we had a chance to look at some examples of fractions in the real world, it's now time to do the lesson. Your first step, go to the disk and print up the notes, or at least the portions that talk about the examples of the exercises, and the lesson quiz, of course. Read through them until it says, come back to the video. And then I will explain pretty much what the notes say. But I hope to illustrate things maybe in a clearer way, or sometimes just seeing the examples worked out may be better than just reading about it. Also, when you see something like this, that means it's a special video exercise. I want you to listen carefully. I will tell you when you should pause. And again, you'll see this icon right here. Okay, so there's the pause and there's the play. Pause the video, try to do the problem, and then press play, and then I will work out the problem on the board. And this gives us more of an interaction. You read, you watch video, you do problems, and you understand fractions. Now, another thing you may notice is that I have these fractions on the bottom of the screen here. Well, what is this all about anyway? Well, I'm going to call these my reference fractions. And I try to match fractions in the notes with these over here in color and size. So if you see something that looks like a half, well, most likely it's going to be one of these things. If you see an eighth, well, it's probably going to be one of these guys right here. Now, not all fractions are represented here, but just the main ones. Most of the examples of fractions that deal with round figures, I will use the pizza that you saw earlier on the board, or other graphics, but mostly pizza. Now I'd like you to take a moment to read the section in your notes entitled Understanding Fractions, and I'll see you back over here.